Most of the homes have attics and basements and 2-car garages. And so I say people, you kept the stuff because you could. You didn't have to get rid of it because you had the space. So when the time comes, a lot of times it's seniors saying, I don't want to leave this for my children to deal with. So let's deal with it now.
So many things to talk about, and like I said before, when I read this, I was thinking that's really a good point, in that you feel less stress when things are decluttered.
Absolutely.
You know, and sometimes having a small home might be the issue, but having a larger home, you have just more stuff, and then more ability to get a hold of more stuff.
Right.
How do you get started? Do you do a consultation when you first come in? And is it just a general conversation, or do you get right to work?
I offer any potential client a free in-home consultation because I tell them you should meet me in person and I need to see your space, and we'll just take a walking, talking tour of the home. Sometimes they'll say, it's just this that I want to deal with, but I say if we can see the rest of the home, I can see where might we relocate or how could we reconfigure things to make it work a little bit better for you. And usually if there's one space, there's more than one space. And I ask people, please don't do anything before I come, because there's people, you know, the joke is that you clean before the cleaning lady comes. Don't organize before the organizer comes. So I do a walkthrough, and we talk about what the needs are, what the goals are, what the time frame is, and then we come up with a plan. So the first time we meet, we don't do hands-on work. We just figure out, what do we do? And then we make a plan, and then we go from there.
Is it okay to be sentimental, though, and to kind of hold on to things?
Absolutely.
You know, that's okay to do that?
Yeah, it is. People say, are you going to make me get rid of all my stuff? No, I'm not going to make you get rid of anything. But when you put emotion into a thing, you have to make sure that it's appropriately placed, that it's a fond memory, and that there's not 1,000 things representing that same fond memory. So sometimes you have to prioritize. How much can you keep? Maybe you've been a world traveler, but if you're downsizing, maybe instead of keeping 20 things from each trip, you pick your favorite 3 things from each trip, and we can then create a place to display those, but maybe not everything. Same with kids' mementos and things like that. If you kept every paper that your child brought home from the time they went to preschool to the time they graduated, you'd need a warehouse. So I tell people, prioritize. Let's sort through these and pick out the things that are most representative of each year of your child's school career, and that will make it fit into a smaller space.
And that's so sweet. You have to have some degree of empathy and connection to be able to do that, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, looking through hundreds of little kids' pictures, that would be really hard. But that's part of what you do.
It is. And sometimes I have to tell people, you want to pick something that's unique to your child. So the fact that a math, I'll call it a ditto sheet because I'm just that old, but
I know what
is what a ditto sheet is. So when it's just a sheet that's printed 2 + 2 and then they drew the number 4, it's not worth saving. Every kid by the time they graduate from high school should know how to add. So don't save those things. Save the pictures that were really representative of what they drew in 1st grade, or what they wrote in 2nd grade, or what their thoughts were in 5th grade. Something that's really unique to them, and not just the fact that they could spell a word.
What's interesting to me as you're saying this is that, you know, my mom saved every picture that I drew, and then she presented, I'm sure she's watching, she presented that box to me when I was ready to move into my first home. And I'm like, I can't take this stuff with me. So she was thinking, well, if it doesn't have meaning to you, you know, how much of all of this has meaning to me? You know, so it's complicated, because if you're saving it for your kids, it may not work out.
Well, and what I would say to you, Tammie Lee, in that case would be, just say thanks, Mom, and take it.
Oh, I did.
And you take it. And then what happens to it after that?
She would have asked me, though, and then it was just
better.
But
it's not like you're gonna, every time she would visit, you'd go through the bin of my, childhood artwork.
That's
so
true.
Sometimes I tell people, especially when a mom or dad, they need to downsize and they've saved these things, I say to the children, if they want you to take it and you don't want it, and it's not something of great value, just take it. Just say thank you and take it, and then do whatever you need to do with it. Pass it along.
Just when it comes up at dinner, just talk about something else.
Just change the subject. Oh, it's still in the box downstairs, or it's hard, but if they're willing to let go of it, I tell people, take it.
And then you'll go to that
because
next person's
then
house.
their heart feels broken. Like, I saved this for 40 years and you don't want it.
I know.
You know,
it gets
so
dicey.
Right, it does.
I want to cover a lot of things, so I'm going to kind of move all over the point. I wanted to talk about offices because you also do that. So we talked about home, we talked about downsizing. How about with regards to, well, we want to talk about presentations and seminars as well, but I know you had something in here about offices because that really struck me.
Yeah.
Do you come in corporate?
We'll do like individual offices. I mean, I've never organized an entire
But you might now?
an entire office building. But individual offices, sometimes a company will recommend to somebody who's maybe not as productive as they should be, or maybe their work life is lava flowing out into other people's space. So they'll call me in and say, we need to figure out something, or because, you know, things are going to come to blows. So we'll work in an office to make things more productive and to help somebody to not continue whatever the bad habit was that created the difficult situation to begin with. And home offices as well. A lot of people now either work from home or have an office where they run home and then also run a business. So there's a lot to that, a lot of paperwork systems. And you know, when somebody says to me, I've got 3,000 emails in my inbox, I just think, you must use the search option a lot because you can put them in folders, you know. So,
but you have to be dedicated to doing that, you know. So once somebody has your professional intervention, it's like a diet and exercise. You can't just give it up. You've got to have it's a lifestyle change.
Absolutely. And I tell people getting organized and staying organized takes discipline. It's not, I'm not a magician. I don't come in and wave a wand and make it better and then it maintains itself. It's just like laundry. I say to people, you know, you might think you need a $5,000 laundry system, but really you just need to do the laundry 3 times more a week. Sometimes I'll go into a home and literally there will be mountains and mountains and mountains of clothes because people, once they get so far behind, they just buy more. They just buy more because they're overwhelmed. So I say, instead of having me in to organize, hire somebody, a high school student, a college student, somebody to come in 3 times a week and just do a load of wash, a dry, and put it away, wash, dry, put it away, until you're caught up, and then maintain it.
Right.
So laundry doesn't maintain itself. Paperwork doesn't maintain itself. I can create the most awesome filing system in the history of the universe, whether it's in an office or a home office, but the papers don't walk themselves to the file. You have to maintain it. So we try to make it as simple and functional as possible so it can be maintained. Sometimes people's categories for files are either too broad, like just a home office example would be insurance. Well, you've got car insurance, you've got homeowners insurance, you've got life insurance, you've got health insurance. You can't have one big fat file. But other times they'll want it so fine-tuned and then they'll say, now I don't remember what's the difference between this and this and that. So we have to find a happy medium.
I like the example somewhere in here where you said even turning in a spare bedroom into an office space may make that whole thing a little bit less stressful.
Right.
Being too cramped, you really can't have a super good system.
Right, and a lot of times in newer built homes where they built that little office-y thing in the kitchen, those tend to not really function very well as office-y things. They tend to just be more countertop with piles of stuff.
Yes, a collection.
Yes, so it is nice if you can have a little bit more of a dedicated space, and maybe you just use that as the space where the incoming mail goes and I open it and then I figure out, okay, what's going to happen from here. Or the kids come home and here's where the paperwork goes, the permission slips they need, or your pending things. But as far as a whole office, typically those don't really work as well as I think they were intended to work.
Does it cost a lot of money to buy the stuff you need? Not necessarily your services, but like if you come in and you say, let's organize this office, does it have to be expensive, or can you organize, kind of on a budget?
No, absolutely. And I typically tell people we won't buy anything. First of all, that's the other thing people like to do. You walk through a place like Bed Bath & Beyond or Target or someplace
organized.
And there's so many things in all these bins and they all match and they look so awesome, but they're all just stacked up and empty. Sure, it looks awesome, but you can't buy until you know what you're storing in them, until you know how many of a thing are going to go in that thing. You don't know what size to buy. We worked one time in a house where we were organizing a whole kids' playroom area. So we started gathering crayons, and we started out in a shoebox size bin. Just all the crayons are going in here. And pretty soon that got filled, and then it went to the double shoebox size bin, and then it went to a small tote, and then it went to a tote that you could fit, you know, multiple blankets in. Was full of crayons, because every time they went, nobody could ever find crayons, so they just kept buying more and buying more and buying more. And as we started organizing and just sort of herding all the crayons into this thing, you know, the mom said, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on crayons. So I tell people, don't buy anything. We'll come in, I use dish pans or just cardboard boxes to start the sorting process, and then we figure out what we need after that. Sometimes you already have what you need.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk a little bit more during break about what we want to cover, and we'll be back in just a few minutes, so don't go away. Welcome back to Western Air tonight. We're having too much fun here. I'm your host, Tammie Lee. Joining me tonight, I have Jamie Shaner, who is, I want to make sure I have her business right, owner of Home Solutions of Western New York Incorporated. You do way more than homes. You do businesses, offices, whatever, and she's willing to work beyond that. So maybe you might get a huge corporate deal. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, maybe.
It might be. So she's an entrepreneur, owner of the company, and I know that she has people that work with her and under her and help her to create this wonderfully organized process. She, I will say, is fully insured and is a member of the Better Business Bureau, which is always a good thing. And you have a newsletter. So how do you get the newsletter? So what do you tell us in the newsletter?
Well, so I try to do a monthly newsletter, and it's just either timely tips, interesting products, and ask the organizer. I'll answer a question that comes to me every month. Links to helpful information, links to blog posts that I write, and people can get it by either going to my website. There's a little place on the side where they can sign up, or there'll be a little drop-down thing where they can sign up, or they can go to my Facebook page and they can also sign up there.
Give us the Facebook, just because some people are listening to this on the radio. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if I shared that with you.
Well, the website is www.homesolutionswny.com.
Okay.
The Facebook page is...
You can probably even just Facebook that word and it'll pop up.
Home Solutions Organizing, I think was what it's called. You have to play with words on
We'll find you.
Facebook.
We'll find you.
And there's links to it on my website too.
What about, if you can share with us just some of the questions that have come across your desk, so to speak, and some of the challenges that have really inspired you. Can you give us a few examples that are de-identified?
Okay, no, absolutely. Well, one example, the first thing people usually ask me, everybody wants to know, is this the worst you've ever seen? That's typically the first question people ask, and I always say, no, it's not the worst I've ever seen. And clearly, if I had to look back over 12 years, somebody would have to be the worst, but I'd be hard-pressed to think of who that is. So a lot of times people will make excuses for why they have things, or why they're keeping things, and everything is tied up in memories. So one example that we had was a dusty, water-stained, cobwebby box under the basement stairs. And so we were working down there, and I said, what is this? I don't know, said the client. So we pulled it out and opened up, brittle newspaper, uncover. Oh, those are my grandmother's dishes. Those are very special to me. And I say, if these are very special to you, this isn't where they belong. This isn't how you treat them. So if that's true, I'm going to hold you to that. We're going to take them upstairs, we're going to wash them, and we're going to find a place for them to live. So if things are special to people, they deserve a place worthy of special status. So if you're keeping things in a box in the back of a closet, how is that honoring the memory of what that represents? So if you have memories of people, you know, that either are still in your life or have passed, they should be incorporated into your daily life. I have one candy dish that was my grandmother's, and that was the one thing I wanted because it was the first thing I saw when I walked into her home, and so it's in my home. It's out of a dish that my mom was her mom's, and I remember my mom always using it. My mom is still living, but she gave it to me to have while she was still living, and I use it all the time. So if I didn't have the space for it, it wouldn't be fair to just shove it away. So those are some of the things. The other thing, You know, people will say, do you think I have too many glasses, too many wine glasses, too many sets of dishes? Sometimes the answer is yes. How much can you use in any given point in time? One of the things we talked about during the break was Tupperware. I say to people, are you going to ever feed an army and send them home with all this food? I mean, you can buy the disposable ones. And so if you send them home, don't, you know, people write their names on them.
People
I want this
bring
back.
them back, I know.
No. That's, I think, a generational thing.
I know.
But you really should only need enough. They nest, and you have some bigs, some mediums, some smalls, and that's all you need.
And if you don't have lids, get rid of them.
Absolutely.
Do a lid
Yes.
reconciliation.
Absolutely. So we do that,
Yeah.
and they're all recyclable.
Right.
And that's the other thing I try to stress to people. If you can't use it, if you don't need it, all right, so here's the parameters. Do you need it? Is it something that you need to function? Do you use it? Okay, I think I need it, but do I use it? Okay, so do you need it? Do you use it? Do you love it? Is it something you enjoy looking at, or do you keep it out of guilt? So do you need it? Do you use it? Do you love it? Do you have the room to store it?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm downsizing people, you know, my kitchen isn't big enough. Well, you can't buy huge things anymore. Don't buy 12 rolls of paper towels now. Buy the 4-pack. Don't buy 5 gallons of olive oil. Just buy a jar. You know, let the grocery store store things for you. So do you need it? Do you use it? Do you love it? And do you have the room to store it? Are the parameters around pretty much anything that we come across in a person's home.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you're scratching at some vulnerability. I can sense in myself. You know, I have my grandmother's china dishes. I don't use them all the time, but they were passed to me with some expectation that I would pass it on to the next generation. And I can't say that I use them all the time, but I entertain quite a bit, and I could, and I'm thinking I should. What do you tell people who are in my spot, where you're kind of the generation that's receiving this, and you're expected to pass it along?
Well,
not in a bad box.
No,
but
no, I understand that, and that's actually coming up in our own family, where there are children, grandchildren, but I don't know that there will be great grandchildren. You know, so things can only go so far down the line, and I oftentimes have to give my clients permission. You don't have to be the archival repository for all things, for all generations. So I would say to you, if you don't use them or can't use them all, maybe you keep a place setting for 2 or 4 that you could just use on occasion, and you pass the rest along to somebody who would love them and use them because they have none.
yes, that's a good point.
So, I mean, that does, especially with dishes, and I can tell you, consignment shops, I mean, there's just so much china. We have an aging demographic in Western New York. Hummels and things that people collected, they think, oh, you know, this is going to fund my retirement. The things have really dropped in value because the market gets flooded with them. And as far as china, if it can't go in a dishwasher or a microwave, a lot of younger people
Won't
don't
use
want
it. Or they'll challenge that and they'll use it in the dishwasher anyway.
I mean, I have a place setting of 12 that we got when we got married, and my mother-in-law, my husband's an only child, so when she passed, she had beautiful Haviland china, so it's that much older than mine. It is packed carefully in my attic. I don't know if we have 2 boys. I don't know if it's anything they would ever want, but maybe someday I'll get rid of mine and use hers. But right now it's just in a holding pattern because, like you said, we only have so many times we use the good china. It doesn't go in the dishwasher or the microwave.
Right.
So, you know, you have to, I still have every piece from our place setting of 12. Nothing's been
We're
broken.
both thinking through this now.
Yeah.
Well, so you have the home projects, like this type of thing. I can imagine you do this maybe every 6 months, keep up on it every year, look at your closet maybe every year or whatever. But the home central, your billing area, all of the things that kind of managing your home, how much time does that take about approximately for a regular person a week to keep that under control?
Well, it depends on how much mail comes in, and what I tell people is, so the incoming mail will never stop. It will never stop coming in. So we can't just catch you up and then you're done. So let's say on any given day you get 10 pieces of mail. So at the end of a week, 6 days of mail delivery, you've got 60 pieces of mail. So you decide, do you want to deal with that 10 pieces once a day or 60 pieces once a week? What I advise people to do is as soon as the mail comes in, take a look at it. If it's recyclable, don't set it down, just drop it in the recycle bin right away. So now you've probably cut your incoming mail by 2/3. If it's something that has to be shred, put it in a shred basket right away. Where I set up people with a recycle basket and a shred basket right near where they're going to open and process the mail. So as soon as you open an envelope, the envelope can go right in your recycle bin. There's nothing confidential.
Right.
Now, again, I have to be aware of clients' comfort levels. Some people still feel that if it has their name and address on it, it needs to be shred. And I say, okay, if that's your comfort level, okay, but I'm going to tell you what, I can Google your name or it's out there. Your name and address is not confidential.
That's a good point.
So the credit card offers that come or the checks that come like from your credit card that say use this check to pay, those should be shred. Anything with an account number, social security number, private information, medical information, I say for sure you should shred that if it's not something you're going to keep. But if you process, I mean, it probably takes you 5 minutes to open your mail to just get it open, unless you wait a week. And I mean, sometimes we're dealing with garbage bags, garbage
It gets to be
full of mail.
Herculean.
Yeah.
we're going to have you back. I hope you will come back because we're at the half point and out of time. But I wanted to mention that you not only individualize the experience for people respectfully and very thoughtfully, but that you don't have OCD yourself, and so that you have a very realistic expectation. So we appreciate your thoughts and organization. If you could give us a number for people to call or to reach you on a website again, just all that contact information.
Okay. Phone number, area code 716-984-4841. Website, homesolutionswny.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to come back after break, so don't go away.